There's a version of you that decided at some point that rest had to be earned. Maybe you don't remember deciding it. Probably didn't feel like a decision at all. Felt like common sense. Finish the list first. Then you can stop. This is for that version of you. The one still at the desk at 11 p.m. Laptop glowing, telling yourself just one more thing for the fourth time tonight. The one who knows physically that you're exhausted. The heavy eyes, the headache that started around 4 o'clock and never left. The way your own thoughts feel slower now, and who is still typing anyway. You've probably heard the word for this. Burnout. But here's what almost nobody tells you about it. Burnout doesn't usually feel like burning out. Feels like being productive. Feels like the version of you that's finally keeping up. Let's actually look at what's happening, because you deserve more than take a break. Advice that never once addresses why you can't. Psychologist Herbert Freudenberger coined the term burnout in the 1970s, studying people in caregiving professions who gave everything to their work and had nothing left for themselves. Decades later, researcher Christina Maslach turned it into something measurable, defining burnout not as simple tiredness but as 3 specific things happening together. Exhaustion, a growing cynicism or detachment from the work itself, and a creeping sense that nothing you do actually matters anymore. Here's the detail that should stop you for a second. Maslach's research found that the people most at risk aren't the ones who care the least about their work. They're the ones who cared the most for the longest without enough support to sustain it. You didn't become this person by accident, and you didn't become this person by being lazy about your own limits. If anything, it was the opposite. It was caring applied without a single boundary around it for far too long. Think back for a second to whenever this actually started. Maybe it was a job where slowing down once got noticed and not in a good way. Maybe it was watching someone in your life treat rest like a character flaw, so you learned early that your worth was something you had to keep proving. Picture a report card with one B on it, buried among A's, and the only comment anyone made was about the B. Picture a parent who only asked about your grades, your practice hours, your project deadlines, never just how your day actually felt. You didn't need a lecture to learn the lesson. You just needed that pattern to repeat enough times. Researcher Malissa Clark, who studies what she calls workaholism, has found that compulsive overworking is rarely about loving the work itself. It's much more often about anxiety, a nagging physical unease that shows up the moment you stop, because stopping means there's nothing left between you and whatever you've been outrunning. That's the part worth sitting with. The exhaustion isn't the problem your brain is trying to solve by working more. The exhaustion is what happens while your brain solves a completely different problem. How do I keep this feeling of not enough far enough away that I don't have to feel it? Here's what was actually happening in your body this whole time, even when it looked like willpower. Neuroscientist Bruce McEwen described a concept called allostatic load. The cumulative wear and tear your body takes on when it stays in on mode for too long without enough recovery. Your system isn't built to sprint indefinitely. It's built to sprint, then genuinely stop. When the stop never comes, the cost doesn't disappear. It accumulates quietly in your body, in your immune system, your sleep, your ability to concentrate, long before it shows up anywhere you can see it. And there's a reason the pull to keep going feels almost chemical, because it partly is. Every time you check something off a list, your brain releases a small hit of dopamine, the neurotransmitter tied to reward and motivation. Finished task feels good. An email answered feels like progress. The problem is that dopamine doesn't care whether the task actually needed to happen tonight. It just rewards the completing, which means the more you work, the more small hits you get, and the harder it becomes to feel okay in the quiet moments where nothing is being checked off at all. Rest starts to feel like withdrawal, not relief. So by the time you're sitting there at 11 p.m., it isn't really about the task in front of you anymore. It's about a body running on allostatic overdraft and a brain that's learned to associate stopping with discomfort, layered on top of an old belief that your value was never guaranteed. It had to be re-earned every single day through output. That's not a character flaw. That's a system doing exactly what it was built and trained to do. Here's something that might genuinely surprise you. Psychologists who study identity have a term for what happens next: identity fusion, when the line between what I do and who I am gets so thin it basically disappears. You can hear it in the way you introduce yourself at a party, leading with your job title before your name has even landed. You can hear it in how a slow week at work doesn't just feel unproductive, it feels like evidence against you personally. Once that fusion happens, stopping work doesn't just feel unproductive. It feels like a small threat to your actual sense of self. No wonder you can't just relax. Relaxing, to that fused identity, can feel disturbingly close to disappearing. If you're the version of you reading this at 11 p.m. right now, here's what I actually want you to know. The exhaustion you're pushing through isn't a sign you need to work harder to earn your rest. It's your body's oldest, most honest signal, telling you the same thing it's been telling you for a while. This isn't sustainable, and it was never supposed to be. You don't fix allostatic load by pushing through it. You fix it by actually physically stopping, not doom scrolling instead of working, which just trades one form of on for another, but real rest, the kind that lets your nervous system genuinely downshift. That's not a productivity hack. It's closer to basic maintenance. And the identity part takes longer, but it starts small. It starts with noticing the exact moment you associate a full evening of nothing productive with a flicker of guilt. And instead of obeying that flicker, just naming it. That's not laziness talking. That's an old learned equation between your worth and your output, running quietly in the background. You don't have to solve it tonight. You just have to notice it's there. Modern work culture doesn't make this easier. Think about the Slack notification that lands at 9 p.m. on a Sunday, and how your hand reaches for your phone before your brain has even decided to check it. Think about the calendar that fills its own white space, the way a weekend turns into just catching up on a side project that was supposed to be for fun. None of that happens because you're weak-willed. It happens because an entire culture has quietly agreed that being reachable always is the same thing as being valuable. Workplace surveys from the American Psychological Association have repeatedly found that a large share of employees feel expected to be reachable outside working hours, and that this expectation is one of the strongest predictors of burnout across industries. That's not a personal failing playing out in isolation. That's an entire environment quietly teaching the same lesson your nervous system already learned somewhere else, a long time ago. So here's the letter, if that's what this is. To the version of you still at the desk at 11 p.m., you were never behind. You were never almost caught up. There was never a finish line that, once reached, would finally let you rest without earning it first. That finish line was never real. It was a story your nervous system built to survive a period when stopping felt dangerous. You're allowed to close the laptop with things still unfinished. Not because the work doesn't matter. Because you matter regardless of whether the work is finished tonight, and no amount of output was ever going to be the thing that proved that to you. It was already true. There's a version of you that decided rest had to be earned. Tonight, you get to decide something different. I built this channel because I kept noticing how many of us are fighting exhaustion with willpower instead of understanding, and willpower was never going to be enough. This is Quiet Signals. If any part of tonight's video described your actual Tuesday, tell me in the comments what just one more thing usually sounds like for you. See you in the next one.